is horrible. You shouldn't be doing that indoors. That's just, whoo. That's not good. That's not good at all. That's one of the worst sounds. That's one of the worst sounds you can do. That's one of the worst sounds there is. Well, look, I'm. How do I? Chewing on Skeletor. Yo, chewing on Skeletor, chewing on Skellies. Kicking back with my man Skellies. Supreme Court Judge Skellies Tor. Skellies Tor? Oh man, these intros, they're getting worse. If that's even possible. Greetings, programs. My name's Ingrid Bernal. Hankrin Fernale here. Hanging out in Runehammer. Look at this new camera angle. Wow. It's so expansive and spacious. I have room for all my world maps. I took one of my desks and I just gave that shit away. I was just like, no, it's too crowded in here. I redid the whole room. I'm looking around like, this room sucks. I suck at this. And then my significant other came in here and said, go away for 1 hour. And when I came back, all this splendor was awaiting me. I just needed a third party. That's what I'll refer to my spouse as from now on, a useful third party. I don't think that's what it's supposed to sound like, but you should not be using one of these indoors unless you're drinking out of it. Hi, everybody. It's Friday. It's Friday afternoon. That means the weekend is almost here. Now, for those of us who are like weekday worker people, that's exciting. For me, it means I only have 2 days left to prepare for the first session of Old School Essentials. The Dirty Jobs crew is back at it again Monday night, and I have done almost no preparation. Before we kick off the topic for today's stream, welcome everybody. Thank you for tuning in. First, just on that note, running this second season of Old School Essentials with this group of players. The main thing driving me, I mean, just as a side note here, a footnote, if you will, a sidebar, a text box. The thing driving me is counterpoint, right? So basically the only bit of prep I've done, I'm panicking a little bit, but that's what game masters do, right? We wait till the last second, we procrast, and then we panic. Counterpoint. So I made a list of all of the sort of big cool things in season 1 of Dirty Jobs. And then next to that list, I sort of put like the opposite or the completely not included things. And then you figure out how that list of sort of opposite themes to this season of the game. So we're going to do another year of play. We have characters that are existing 25 years later in the same world, which is now a sort of a homebrewed version of Blackmore. But all that doesn't matter. As a game master, what matters to me is counterpoint, is that this second season feels like all the things that didn't get included in first season. Not all the things, but you know what I mean. And I don't want to spoil it quite yet because hopefully we'll get some documentation of that prep process, maybe on my blog. And then we can see how the session goes Monday night. And as I know you guys like to do, we can compare the preparation phase with the execution phase. I also have this ultra sick new RPG case that was gifted as a wedding gift that I got from my good friend Liam, who hooked me up. And, I was skeptical of this stuff, but these RPG cases are sick. They have all these cool little padded cells for your miniatures, and they got books, got little dice things. And as a working GM, a weekly, twice, 2 games a week type GM, RPG case is a little bit corny, a little cheesy. Normally I'm just like a backpack dude, but I gotta say, man, like the hard suits, the models up here, they are so difficult to transport, but with this thing, it's really cool. So you might have to endure a 10-minute video from me about that case. By the way, not sponsored or anything like that. It was just a gift that was given to me, and it turned out to be way cooler than I thought it would be. So that's a little thing, but let's get into what we're going to be talking about today. Hey, everybody. What's up? Thank you for tuning in. 70 people already chilling here in the Wendy's parking lot with me. We're going to set up some tents. and start a township. And we're going to call it Wendy's Township because the lettuce so crispy. Today, what we're going to be talking about is this weird term that Ben Milton coined weeks ago, if not months ago, in his mind, probably years ago. You may know Ben from his bitchin' YouTube channel, Questing Beast. He is sort of the prophet. He is the muad'Dib of the OSR. Now, OSR, you know how I have weird feelings about that label, about that generalization, and you know, all kinds of people have weird things that they might think or want to say about the so-called OSR, if it's looking into the past, or if it's actually just a new movement, or if it's actually kind of already over, or if it's just getting started. There's a million opinions on it. Whatever your opinions are on that sort of soup of gaming style and books and products that are built around that certain kind of flavor that is associated with the OSR. My man Ben, he knows what's up. He is the muad'Dib of the OSR. So he has dope reviews, but also just sort of sees through reviewing what comes out. And has that critical mind that I really enjoy, that doesn't just look at the artifacts that you have in front of you, but through those artifacts into the deeper levels of thinking that make what we do so cool, so endlessly interesting. I think that RPGs are a lot like writing and art, in a lot of cases put together, but namely in that they can be endlessly interesting at different stages in life, because they're completely open-ended and they're built on a foundation of critical thinking. And so as your critical thinking increases, you reach new levels of depth before, so it's evergreen in that way. So anyways, this video is about this term that Ben coined, Hermetic D&D. Now, why am I talking about this? Well, let's just get into what that means first, and then we can ask why I want to blab at you for an hour on the YouTubes to hopefully liven up your Friday afternoon with a little Runehammer. Hermetic refers to, in its most sort of a simplistic form and its oldest form, refers to a person. This guy, crazy mofo named Hermes Trismegistus. Hermes Trismegistus was a sort of a character that could be compared to someone like Pythagoras, or Plato, or Aristotle, sort of oddballs, or even like sort of Euclid. An oddball from a time when deep thinking about geometry, about philosophy, about theosophy, about cosmology, about these sort of things, this way of thinking also sort of blended into a cult-like sort of persona for a person. Now, Pythagoras especially is known for this, right? Everybody knows about the Pythagorean theorem, but Pythagoras, like, if you wanted to hang out with him, like, you could only eat beans and you had to wear like a certain kind of a toga. Seriously, that was really weird. And Hermes Trismegistus was like this, in that he was an advanced thinker in his Greek sort of era, and his thinking reached many different realms, but also delved into weird realms like, you know, practical magic and what we would now refer to as the occult, the supernatural phenomenon, as well as very specific ways that you can live your life and do things to evoke deeper, more mysterious powers in the universe. So they were all part of a cosmological sort of worldview that formed this almost cult-like tone. Now, over the centuries, since the days that Hermes, my man, was actually living and breathing, the word hermetic has taken on several new layers, and every single layer of this word is cool if you're into D&D. Okay, so you've probably heard the word hermetic also refer to like systems of magic, right? It's like, if you're familiar with like the Metatron, right? Or sort of the Philosopher's Stone, right? It's this sort of goal of alchemy that, using very specific, sort of borderline pseudo-scientific methods, you can actually change, you know, air into water, and you can change stone into gold and stuff like that. And this is all part of this weird Metatron worldview that uses sort of paraphysics to create this kind of magical system that sounds very realistic. It's not another thing that hermetic refers to, right? Hermetic magic or hermetic systems refer to detailed systems of practical magical application. Now, clearly, that's something as D&D lovers we think about all the time. We always think about spells and exactly what ingredients make spells work and exactly the limitations and yet lack of limitations around magic power, around arcane power versus divine power, and all this kind of stuff. We think about that stuff a lot in creation and playing of fantasy worlds. And in their more detailed sense, especially if you've ever read or played Ars Magica, it had a very hermetic feel to it. Okay, so we're still inside that word. It has yet another layer to it, though. Hermetic is, you've probably heard it used like when it comes to like medical equipment, right? Something can be hermetically sealed. I remember, boy, this is a deep cut, but way back in the 80s, there was a wine cooler, which is like carbonated wine, called Bartles and James. And Johnny Carson used to make jokes that he got his like answers for Karnak, you know, the guy who could read the future and stuff, that the envelopes were kept in a hermetically sealed jar on Bartles and James' porch. Now that's an insanely deep cut, but I think that's the first time I really heard this word, hermetically sealed. Now, it's not a type of technology. It's not like a rubber O-ring or something is a hermetic O-ring. It's because the word hermetic also refers to isolation. Now, in the medical sort of term or hermetically sealed, what it's saying is that so complete is the seal on this container that whatever is inside is completely isolated from the outside world. And so hermetic, you might think of the word hermit, right? A hermit is isolated. But in the medical sense, it's absolute, it's isolation. But in a looser sense, the word can refer to being out there, being apart. So we've got these three cool layers to this word. And assuming that Ben is as smart and a cool dude as I reckon he'd be, I think he is referring to all three of them, both the abstruse magical system and then the sort of the kind of the life way, or the you know, the kind of how do I even describe it? The Metatron part, right? You have the reference to the actual person, you have the kind of magical system, and then you have this sort of isolation element. So what the hell is Hermetic D&D, and why do I care, and why should you? I think what Ben meant when he brought up Hermetic D&D is all three of these things. One, it's referring to the style of thinking that this individual had that has found its way all the way down through the centuries to us in a lot of sort of assumed knowledge. Anybody who knows anything about the occult or about the kind of the oddity of, you know, like this sort of the Aleister Crowley kind of mystery appeal, right? It's kind of like this weird kind of home brewed magic system that actually like one time conjured up this demon like in Italy, like a guy got killed, right? Like Hellboy has a lot of themes like that. But then we also go to this isolation component. You're apart from D&D. So on the one side, you're a system creator, you're a home brewer, but you also have this grit, and you take whatever you need to take to create your own hermetic system. It's echoing or inspired by the actual person, Hermes Trismegistus, and sort of way of thinking and the cool symbols and diagrams that we associate with this stuff. But in another way, Hermetic D&D is apart. It's isolated. Why does this matter? Well, when Ben originally said this and I was involved in the conversation, he was referring to, we were sort of talking about, you know, like what really goes on out there. What really is the hobby? Because there's no amount of YouTube or television or movies or books or articles or anything can capture what the actual population of the now giant RPG hobby really does. And Ben's thesis here was that there is a vast sea of hermetic D&D players that no one really knows about. And I agree with him. I agree. I don't think that the great undercurrent of our hobby is sort of the play as written D&D 5th edition kind of leading edge, sort of group. That's, to me, I think it's hard to deny that's kind of the leading edge of what's going on right now as far as thinking of our hobby as kind of a wave. This popularity wave involved with 5th edition is hard to deny. And I'm sure people have opinions about it, this way or that. Everybody's always kind of clucking in the chicken yard about 5th edition, whether they like it or lump it. But I don't think that is the sort of populace or the kind of the grassroots of our hobby. I agree with Ben that the grassroots is a hermetic game table, meaning a group of people who kind of nobody knows about, right? They're not on YouTube, they're not on TV, they're not writing articles, and they're not publishing material. The group of people, usually they've played together for quite a while, who have kludged together some horrific beast of a system which changes every damn week, lives in a 3-ring binder or a spiral notebook or several notebooks, and is never really given to anyone else. It just lives at their table. And they have like a working knowledge of the ever-changing, ever-amended system that they have created in almost cult-like way, but also that's hermetic in the medical sense. It is apart from what we see as the hobby. It's over here. It's isolated. And we don't even know about it. We don't know it's there because these people are not public facing. They're just folks. They're folks in their crib, chilling out, playing their version of Rifts or whatever, right? Okay, so let's just, for the sake of this video, go back. Okay, Hankering. Okay, I figure you're probably right. A bunch of them old Hermetic D&D players hiding out in basements all over the world at D&D in some weird way. Metal straws, not a big fan. But they're better for the planet, and you still get to suck your drink through a tube. So let's just say that you agree with me. Then I'm right. That's true. We're never going to know because of the very nature of what we're talking about. But let's just say, yeah, okay, that sounds reasonable, dude. So why are we talking about this again? We're talking about it because I want to be a voice right here on YouTube to basically encourage and reinforce folks out there who are searching around right now. I noticed that a lot of times YouTube is a launch point for folks getting into things. And I'm talking anything, car repair. You want to restore a set of bagpipes that you inherited. You want to get into like building a deck. The getting into part is when you go to YouTube. You're kind of like, man, how do I put a deck on the back of my house? What do most people do? You kind of go to YouTube. Now, it doesn't mean that once you're almost done with your deck, you're always looking at YouTube. But YouTube is a pretty dang handy starting point. And so this rant, this speech, this diatribe, this lecture that I'm giving right now, I'm hollering at people that to be part of this movement, this grassroots hermetic D&D movement, this mass, this unseen ocean of players who do not need to buy anything. You do not need to buy the latest stuff. You don't need to keep up with the Joneses, as they say, but in an RPG sense, you do that. But you also don't have to be some kind of cool RPG archaeologist. You don't have to go find things from the late 70s and the early 80s and be like, oh, yeah, this is the real shit. You don't have to live in pre-imagined or familiar worlds. All you need is like your homies, some dice, pen and paper. Other stuff is cool. Yes, it is very cool. There's a zillion cool books. There are a zillion cool miniatures and different things you can have at your table that you're going to want as you progress into the hobby. But the hermetic hobby, to me, is the essence. And if you're watching YouTube and unfortunate enough to have landed at Runehammer, wondering about, this little corner of the internet and D&D and this RPG hobby, which is a hobby of writing, it's a hobby of art, it's a hobby of game design, of mapping, of conversation, of improv, of talking with friends, of meeting and gathering, drinking beer and soda that's not good for you, but you're drinking it anyway, and eating the chips and hanging out in the basement, talking about crazy worlds and crazy ideas. All these things belong to you, and they belong to your group. And A, no one can sell it to you, and B, no one can take it away or buy it from you. Now, you might get into publishing, you might get into creating, you might be getting into public things like I'm doing right now. I'm yelling at the world on the internet. You might get all those things, but that essence of what happened at your table is absolutely magical, and it's totally yours, and it's unique. And in that sense, I think Ben is. So I think it's really useful, and I would like to say that that's where I freaking live, yo. And I've been nicknaming it. Some of the folks on my Discord channel know this. Kind of nicknaming it the Hermetic Fringe, right? A lot of times, the public-facing aspects of our hobby are actually a very small subset of it that is portrayed as the center. But I see the ring on the outside as the big part. That's the Hermetic Fringe. That's the kind of hidden game table. This is one of the reasons that I don't do so-called actual plays on my channel. That's kind of sacred time. It's fun to talk about D&D here on the internet, but I'm not going to harvest what me and my friends do for fun in the name of internet. Some people are down with it, and ours is like that weird Pythagorean cult. When we play D&D, we only eat beans, and we wear a weird toga, and we hide in a subterranean environment. And that's how it's going to stay. So if you're here on YouTube, you're checking out Runehammer. Yes, that's me. Hell yeah. I want to encourage you that we live in a time right now, as you know, the sort of RPG boom is going strong right now. You do not need to buy the newest stuff, and you indeed can't buy the magic that happens at your table. Whether it's great one week and terrible the next, or it's always amazing, or it's always boring, it's your creation, and that is what is one of the most unique things about what we do. You create it, and that's why it can be endlessly interesting as well. So own it, revel in your time, and if you're told like, well, you need this or that, the other supplement, you need this rule book before you can roll a ranger like that, or well, we need to wait until Wizards of the Coast tells us it's okay to give our elves a strength bonus. No, you don't need to wait for anything, and you never need permission to do anything. This is your playground. You are in Pyrrhus's cult, and nobody else gets to come into the temple but you guys. And you're going to do math and eat beans. It's going to be sick. All right. Well, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today, because I'm right about to go into the water slide of a bunch of games, and we'll be getting into recaps and all that stuff. This has just been on my mind ever since Ben said that. So Ben over at Questing Beast, thank you, dude, for putting that word in my brain and sending me down a bonzo wormhole of research on Hermes Trismegistus. Was already a bit of a fan, but just because of like a 2-page spread in my occult book that I'm always, hyping on people. You got to get that book. Occult book is the shit. But then just the more I learned about it, and then I'm looking up the word in Webster's. I'm weird like that, okay? And the more I was thinking about it, I was like, man, this speaks to me. This is my shit. I'm not really for or against anything that's sort of out there. I noticed that on the internet, there's a lot of like, well, this is the best thing, or this is stupid, this is broken, or this is perfect, whatever. I'm not really that kind of dude. I mean, we kind of just put the butter on the bread at our table. And that's like how we create our game. The occult book I'm describing is right here. I've hyped this book up before on the channel, but it is definitely worth doing again. You want this book by John Michael Greer. You want this book. For some people, I know that the occult might have a sort of a, how can I say it gently, like a sort of an anti-Christian connotations. Let me just put it this way. This book is not about anything that is troublesome or eerie or weird or supernatural. This is a historical look at how this word came to be. And it does give some insight into sort of some of the shared myth that D&D has as a whole. Part of what we like about D&D is that it's a mysterious sort of realm where there are forces that are sort of below the world. This was part of the wormhole that I encountered, is this kind of this worry about D&D and of course the occult being sort of anti-Christian and stuff. And that did not wear off in the 80s like maybe some people think. That's going strong. So I'm not sure how to help you on that front. If that's an issue in your life, it might be a little weird to pull this out at the pub and start reading it if you're in an environment that has that kind of worry that this can be, kind of evil, I guess. But I don't see this as evil at all. This is a historical book for scholars of such things, and I don't see any evil in it. So if the word occult gives you the creeps, which it does for some people, this book is not that way. This is a high-minded historical analysis of this huge history that is just awesome. Anyways, this is like a must-have for all game masters, I think. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. It's not a huge topic. I'm not shaking the pillars of the earth with this stuff. Yeah, the Necronomicon would be an example of an occult book that's in character. Like, or even the the Grimoire of Tiamat is another one. That is a book that some people think like bad stuff happens to you if you pick it up or if you read it and stuff. Like, this is not like that. This is historical. It gives you a great sense of like just what some of these sort of oddities are in history and how they came to this. And Hermes Trismegistus is right in there, yo. So is like people like Pythagoras and stuff. A lot of people normally wouldn't think of him as a cult, but it's the outside the norm, right? It's the secret, which I think is the actual true definition of the word. But anyway, that's a little bit of a digression. Ben Questing Beast, thank you, dude, for the word Hermetic D&D. You have found my spirit descriptor. I am a Hermetic D&D player. That's my shit. I've been waiting years for someone to put a label on me that I don't get mad about. And that's it. So that's all I wanted to talk about today. You guys know the drill. We wrap these suckers up. You put question in all caps there in the comments. Just sucking it right through the tube. Actually, you reduce the air pressure in your mouth and the atmosphere pushes your coffee through the straw with its sheer weight. Isn't that crazy? So dumb. What is this, Markiplier? What am I doing? Is this a science channel? All right, here's one from Azimuth. Love that word. Have you read or have thoughts on Poetic Edda? Yeah, a bit challenging, I gotta say. Some of those old sagas are challenging to read. That kind of sing-song, weird writing style's a little gnarly. I have read the Poetic Edda, and what's the other one? Boy, I was into this stuff a long time ago, more than 10 years ago. What's the other one called? The Short Edda or something like that? Yeah, I did struggle through those. Those were kind of tough, but cool. I mean, they definitely give you that weird, Norse pagan vibe that shines through the kind of the verbiage. That's really cool. Like the stories about Arrow-Odd and all that stuff. It's kind of not what I think a lot of people imagine as like, proto-Viking kind of culture. It's got some real strange stuff in it. Kind of like Norse mythology does. It has some real strange stories in there. Just like, what? But yeah, definitely worth. Oh, Prose Edda, thanks. Yeah, definitely worth a read if you're into struggling through some somewhat, strange formatting, but definitely gives you that ancient tongue kind of flavor that can be really cool and inspiring if you're a game master and you're kind of wanting kind of element of that in your game. How's crafting coming along? You mentioned considering getting back into it. Yeah. All my gear and everything that I made on the channel in the early days is still back in the Northwest. Here I've just been sort of working on the hard suit stuff and doing miniatures for the groups. And honestly, putting more work into basically my wheelhouse. I know this is totally a broken record with me, but index cards with Sharpies, man, you want to talk about evergreen D&D stuff, like just index cards and Sharpies, but doing them ahead of the session is super, super handy. Just cards in general. I just love how they feel in my hands. I love how easy they are to use at the table. I do want to make a set of stackers. I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to make some dungeon stackers here pretty soon. But yeah, in just wanting a cleaner environment to think and to do artwork in, Yeah, my crafting stuff's a little bit on the back burner, but then it's never gone, yo. It's never gone. So I just don't really advertise all of that anymore. I have a very simple relationship with YouTube these days. And most of my time and effort goes into the actual creative portion of being Runehammer. Today, for example, I'm extremely lucky to be doing the cover for the new Old School Essentials book, which is a new version of Dark Places and Demogorgons by Eric Bloat. And I get to do the freaking cover of an OSE book. So I've been working on that all day. But that's really where a lot of my efforts go these days. I hope that answers your question. I have not started reading Earthsea yet. I have several other things. Actually, I'm starting Dragonbone Chair, which is an older fantasy novel, but I'm going to read that series probably as long as that first one's really good. Reading that along with a friend of mine for a kind of a book club kind of vibe. I'll get to Earthsea eventually. Oh, and they're short books. Well, I like that. I want a short ass movie, a really short movie. I've been working on a system built on Genesis. That's cool. Yeah, sure. How do I ground myself and my players in the dream world? Well, I would look at some reference that's out there, right? Look at What Dreams May Come, at the Robin Williams. It's kind of a sad movie. It's a bit about dying and stuff. There's also Dreamscape. I think you can have a dream world that doesn't have to be melting paint and Salvador Dali. I think you can have a dream world that uses subconscious symbols and still leads to a journey. Another fun example, this isn't really about dreams, but the movie The Beyond the Black Rainbow puts you in a very strange psychological state, but that is grounded. I think, everybody has different dreams. Some of them are completely bonzo, but a lot of them are grounded in familiar aspects. There's also Beyond the Sunless Sky, or the new Monty Cook, one of the Monty Cook games. Very dreamlike world where things are kind of soupy like that, with like this sort of smoke kind of feel. So there's stuff out there to help you cruise along. It doesn't just have to be bonzo. Yo, Crow Goblin, what up? You mentioned last week you wanted VDS to be more like EZD6. Yeah, I think EZD6 kind of solved the puzzle a little better. I mean, Viking Death Squad, though, has its own cool vibe. It's not like they're like competitors or something. Will we see something like VDS2 powered by EZD6? No, you won't. Viking Death Squad was a completely like holistic project. I was doing the art on my Remarkable tablet, like by hand, no Photoshop. While I was designing that game, it was just a complete mental immersion in Viking Death Squad, and I like it just like it is. Modifius is doing a good job keeping Viking Death Squad stocked and stuff so you can get it. But I'm just happy with what it was. I just wanted to play with that kind of heavy metal stuff for a little while and kind of just move on a little bit. So I'm happy with it just like it is. But I think it would be extremely easy for any game master to say, we're playing Viking Death Squad, but we're going to use EZD6. The conversion is an absolute no-brainer. I wouldn't even call it a conversion. It's just be very, very simple. Thanks for the question, though. Always fun to mention Viking Death Squad. Where are we at? Oh, looks like Antigrav's down here. Cool. On the subject of the Dream World, and it's being put out by Netflix. What's your opinion on Sandman? Oh yeah, Sandman's great. Neil Gaiman is great, and he's one of the best storytellers of our day. Sandman was always really dope. I'm interested to see it. I mean, I tell you, we really are spoiled these days. Like, you come off like Mandalorian, you get Boba, then you get Obi-Wan, then you get Prey, the new Predator movie, which is the sickest, maybe the best movie of 2022, I think, or even of the last several years. Absolutely love it. Then we're in a golden age of super cool horror movies. The new Lightyear movie was super dope. Like, even shows are like really cool. There's so many cool ones, you don't know what to choose from. So yeah, I'm sure Sandman will be really cool. Cool. I caught up. Yeah, Sandman's always cool. Oh, thanks, Eric. Yeah, pretty crazy, huh? I don't have an easy way to show you real quick the progress, but that would probably also be breaching some kind of surprise factor that Eric wants to do. So I can't show it to you yet, but I can tell you I'm doing both their standard cover, like the one that you see right back there. And I'm also doing the collector, which is just a silver inlay ink, like the Basilisk cover on the old school essentials. But I'll tell you, I've been looking at Peter Mullen's covers, and dude, Peter Mullen is the shit. Like, I'm down with Errol Otis and all that good stuff. I love Joe Madureira, of course, Frazetta and these kind of guys. But Peter Mullen, dude, what the hell? He is slaying the game. He's like the Mobius of D&D. Like, damn, his shit's cool, and his compositions are so mind-bending and original. Oh my God. So y'all got to check out that Peter Mullen. Dope stuff. So I got some massive colleagues to at least try to chase. There's no way I'm going to ever be equal. Well, not ever. I got a ways to go. I got some fight in me. But yeah, massive shoes to try to step into with doing one of these covers. So super excited. Need to bring the A game. You know what I mean? That's why I need a metal straw. Tasty. Can you explain Warmaker card game? Oh man. Well, Warmaker is my wargaming rule set that came out over a year ago, about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. Yeah, it was right when I moved in here. Yeah, and so I noticed that like wargaming can be a little bit prohibitive because of the infrastructure, like hundreds of miniatures, 3D terrain, a big ass table that usually you can't move. It's just like as big as a pool table and shit. And so I've been working on how to get what I really like Warmaker. I'm really proud of it. I think that it's a great redux of a lot of wargaming, and I freaking love wargaming. It's mega fun. And I want to do a bunch of wargaming at Jeff Con coming up in Charlotte this November. So I'm like, man, boom, epiphany. When I was out on my honeymoon, use card decks to do wargaming. And a card deck is your army, instead of needing a zillion miniatures, and use decks. And then also you can use cards and card decks for terrain and capture some of the magic of deck building games, but with the measure with a pencil, move around a table fun of destroying forces in a war game. And so if you guys go check out my most recent Patreon post, I kind of preview some of these cards. There's probably going to be about 10 armies in the original offering. And then there's also a deck called the Battlefield deck, which is like rules reminder cards or cards you could use to put rules out on the table. I've noticed that when I'm wargaming, I'm always looking between table back to book. I don't like that. So the cards can sit right under your miniatures on the table, or if you're using cards, whatever. There's also some terrain cards in the Battlefield deck, on and on and on. But wow, it's going to be great. And I had, over 3 weeks to just sit and ruminate on this idea and how it could work. So when the rubber hit the road, I was already had the pedal to the metal. The car metaphors. The car metaphors are wildly out of control right now. The wheels are flying off. Anyway, so keep an eye out. It's going to be great. But first, there's a lot of play testing to do. So I can't be like Kickstarter. For one thing, I won't be doing a Kickstarter, but all the time I would expect it to take maybe till around Christmas, even at the outside. So sometime, yeah, it's going to take a while because I need to get the decks done and I need to get them into testers' hands and get them with me like watching like a creepy wizard over like a webcam, taking notes, but without interacting. Like some kind of freaky Pavlovian wargaming experiment. Have you toyed with the idea of revisiting? I see stuff like Ghost Mountain stuff. Yes, I've toyed with it, but I'm a bit weird as a creator in that my journey is sort of my focus, not necessarily like creating a thing and then spending years like trying to get it in as many people's hands as possible, maximize sales and maximize exposure and all that stuff. I kind of create things and I go, that was satisfying, and I kind of move on to the next thing. Now, this is why Patreon is so critical to my survival as a business and as just a creative person, is that I do tend to do that. I create a thing, I get it to the quality level that I feel like, hell yeah, kind of mess around with it a while and tell people about it, and I kind of move to the next thing. And I don't see that as a problem. That's just that's my life. That's how I've been since I was a little kid. So no, I probably won't do a ton of revisits on things. I want to go into some new frontiers. And I think Warmaker will probably be a bit of a wrap on 2022 as far as looking back, because some of the Warmaker army decks come from the Runeverse, the so-called Runeverse. But I'll tell you, in 2023, I want to expand that universe, not necessarily look back. Even though I know a lot of people really hold some of my sort of settings, near and dear, I am going to be releasing more of these awesome canvas maps because I really like the quality. They're about $50 from CrowdMade. I have a great relationship going with CrowdMade. So I want to put a lot of these out. The Atria one for Hardsuit is about to come out. Then I want to do Ghost Mountain and just get my world maps out in people's hands in this canvas format because it's really cool. We also have changed the name of Blackmoor to the North Holds. So I'm going to do a canvas map of our sort of version of what used to be Blackmoor and so on and so forth. But yeah, not necessarily doing a lot of looking back. Dungeon Master. Now there is a straightforward username. Any suggestions on music to listen to when preparing adventures set in a living nightmare? That's funny. I don't know. Try some Cryo Chamber. Hell, I don't know. I'm a big stoner doom metal guy, but with no vocals. So on Spotify, there's a great playlist out there that a lot of people have contributed to, and I think it's called Instrumental Stoner Doom Metal Sludge, something like that. But instrumental being a key word, and you just get this nice, slow, power chord kind of sludgy metal with no singing, and so you can concentrate better when you're doing that creative kind of muscle work. Yeah, man. Patreon, I know it's cheesy to be like, hey, go, like and subscribe and click the bell button or whatever and get on my Patreon. I don't really like to be that way, but Patreon pays like half my bills or more. Without it, I would not be able to do what I do. It's just that simple. That's why in the beginning of all my books, the first thing I do is say this was made possible by Patreon. So it is a real thing. It isn't just like, hey, give me some money. All of your money is also nice. Any advice on playtesting? No, you can't give advice on playtesting. That's the whole value of it. You just need to put the things in people's hands and zip it as the creator. Do not talk during the playtest. Just watch what happens. You will learn way more than you want to learn about your game design when you do it that way. It is agony, to be honest. Playtesting is really, really tough. If you do it this kind of scientific observer kind of way. Someday I need a two-way mirror with like a weird room, and people play test, and I could be on the other side like with like some weird like cops or something and some computers. Will there be any more print runs? I get this question every single week. I don't know. I can't really control Modifius and their appetite to do print runs. It's their investment when they do more print runs. I know that they want to, but that really is up to them. If you want the collector's edition reprint to happen, which would be super cool, you just contact them directly. If you guys do that en masse, it will happen sooner rather than later. But that's really up to them. Recommendation: Gubat Banwa. Gubat Banwa. I like the sound of that. Oh, cool. Yeah, Nimluth, thanks. Gubat Banwa. I'm on it. Being play tested on. Well, yeah, and digital playtesting is very different than tabletop playtesting. Digital playtesting, you're really looking for dead ends and bugs and baffle moments. I think with tabletop playtesting, you're generally looking for exploits, infinite loops, and also confusing points. Sounds like somebody's car just got stepped on by a Crusader class battle mech. Anyway, you guys enjoyed the conversation today about Hermetic D&D. It's something to think about. Do you live in that Hermetic kind of world, or are you out in the open? Are you part of a large sort of well-documented D&D culture, which a lot of people are? But that Hermetic vibe, man, that's my vibe. It's a little bit of DIY. It's a little bit kind of private in the basement, and it's a little bit weird. So, well, I better get outside and see if I can pry this car out from under this neck. It sounds like it's being crushed. So, thanks for tuning in, you guys. It's good to see y'all once again. Appreciate it. Watch next week we're going to be talking about this new OSC season, Dirty Jobs Season 2. It's going to be cool. Keep those beers cold. And remember, get out there and do something nice for somebody. Go give somebody a dang hug, will you? Tell them you love them. Do a little bit of good in the world. And if we all do it, man, it's going to be a better world, all right? Strength, honor, and beer. Have a great day. I'll be right here like D&D. I'm going to mess with. I'm going to eat some of those peanuts. And maybe go out and enjoy some of this 375-degree heat. Until next week, y'all, keep it real. And I'll be right here, okay? Peace. Oh, yeah.